I stayed in an underwater habitat, a lab, for 100 total straight days. In other words, I did the world's longest dive.
And so what came out of that?
The known mechanisms of action of hyperbaric medicine, right? I had a decrease in every single inflammatory marker in my body, from HSCRP to things like interleukin-6. My inflammation was stereotypically very far down. Cortisol had a sharp decrease. And then when cortisol drops, you have a spike in testosterone. So I had a huge spike in testosterone. Usually I sleep between 30 and 33% in deep in REM. Underwater, I slept between 60 and 66% in deep in REM. And I was just like shocked. And everybody that came down and visited and spent an overnight reported with their Apple Watch the same or similar type increases in sleep pattern.
Today on the Doc Parsley podcast, I have a longtime friend and co-conspirator, Joe Detury, a.k.a. Dr. Deep Sea. Y'all know how I feel about that doctor title, but we let him get away with it because I've known him a long time. Joe.
How you doing?
How you doing? Joe's from Long Island, in case you don't know about it.
Forget it.
It's one word, you slur it, Long Island. So Joey, we've known each other for a long time, but you've been around a lot longer than I've known you. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who Joe Detury is? Joined the Navy to be a diver.
Yeah.
Explain to the audience like what a Navy diver is. What kind of training do you go to? What do they actually do?
Very unlike the Navy SEALs, nobody ever shot at me or shoots at me, right? Like, it's not a... what we do is we go and do three specific jobs. One is explosive ordnance disposal, which I was trained in, but I was never part of. Then there was explosive ordnance management, bullets, beans, bugs, counting of all the, armory stuff. So that I kind of sort of did for a little while. And then the other is diving and salvage, if you will. I was steeped in that mostly. So I have a lot of experience in that pressure range.
Yeah.
So as you increase depth, you increase pressure, as you know. And some of that math that comes with it has lent itself to what we call hyperbaric medicine. As you well know, hyper means more than, baric means pressure. So if we're increasing the pressure, there are some really cool things that happen physiologically in the human body. So when I kind of got all this experience as a diver, as you know, we treated divers for decompression sickness in a recompression chamber. All this stuff kind of sort of started making sense. And, as I'm building through my career, I'm getting into more and more pressure-related type things. And while
and to be clear, you're diving lots of different kinds of rigs. You're not a scuba diver per se, right? So you're the guy with the hose coming out of the helmet, walking around the big shoes, not like Cuba Gooding Jr. and that. Well,
right.
Not that kind of equipment.
Although I did dive that.
You did dive.
I dove that Mark V for
big
a short period
helmet.
of time. Big brass helmet with lots of leather and lead, and it was, twisted metal and sex appeal. But, it's one of those really heavy items that we just shouldn't use anymore.
And then you moved on to the blue suit we wore with the yellow helmet. What's that?
So that was the Mark 12. I have one of those Jakes in my garage to this day.
Right.
We moved on to the Mark 12, and then we moved on to the Superlight 17. And now we have the Mark 21, effectively, Mark 27, So there.
And then you dove some mixed gas stuff.
Mixed gas.
Going super deep.
Yep, super deep.
Talk about that. With injecting fish bellies and all of that.
Yeah, oh goodness. So after a period of time, I got kind of bored with the hose diving is what they called it, because it's limited to the length of the hose, right? And you can only drag so much umbilical through the water.
And the primary purpose of that is to do a work project.
Right.
Like you're going to go dig something up or turn some wrenches or weld something or things like that, right?
You're working underwater, salvaging a ship, raising something from the bottom or looking for something. It's easiest to do it on that kind of a surface supplied rig. But if you're getting out and doing more things, so there's a side training that we do, which is EOD diving, which is on rebreathers. So the rebreathers, that recirculating device that is standalone, it is a self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, but there's no bubbles. right? You recycle the bubbles just like you did in SEAL training. I've dove the LAR 5 like you guys did, the Mark 16, the Mark 15, various versions of civilian rebreathers. And I became one of these guys that knew a little bit about that pressure thing. And what we wound up doing was changing the gas that we were in. So backwards, let's go back to the enlisted times. I was at Submarine Medical Research Lab in Groton, and I'm learning from these PhDs and MDs about how gas is uptaked into the body and 16 third-order partial differential equations, trying to figure out and calculate all that stuff for a decompression protocol. And I said, this is cool stuff. I want to learn more about this. So pulling the string on my own, developing stuff, talking with people. Before you know it, we're cutting dive tables for 300, 400, 500-foot dives. And while we're down there, we're finding new species of fish. We're finding new species of coral. We're finding wave bench formations at 450 feet.
Explain to people why can't you just put on a scuba rig and swim down 500 feet? I mean, what's the big deal? How come, why do you need all this fancy knowledge and different gases and different equipment? Or why can't you just put on a scuba tank and go, I'm going to go down to 500 feet and see the bottom?
Most people believe they can get by on 6 hours of sleep per night. But the truth is, for every hour you short yourself of sleep, you're interfering with your performance, your hormones, your memories, and even your relationships. I saw this firsthand while I was working with the Navy SEALs who are using Ambien at night, energy drinks during the day just to get through their lives. That's why I designed Doc Parsley Sleep Remedy. It's a natural nutritional supplement that's designed to get your brain to do what it's supposed to do. If you want to perform your best at work, home, and in the gym, start with sleep. Take the first step, grab yourself some Sleep Remedy in the link below.
Anybody can get down. Getting back is the hard part, right? Like getting down is the easy part. Yeah. But coming back up, as you increase that pressure, you're squishing that gas smaller. So your work of breathing resistance, or how hard it is to breathe, gets worse and worse while you get down there. So you have to mitigate that by using different gases and the narcotic potential of those gases. And then once you're squishing these molecules really small, they're getting into your bloodstream and your tissues more. So if they're getting into your bloodstream and tissues more, you got to figure out how to let that slowly come up. This is interesting because while we're down there, we found a new species of fish. So we capture it, we recover it. And on the way up, we have to stop slowly and ventilate or perforate the swim bladder of the fish. When we did that, when we had those kind of fish that we had to do that about once every 33 feet or so, we found that our decompression was better and we felt better on the surface, anecdotally. So we said, I wonder if there's something to this deep stop protocol, right? Usually you want to decompress up to the shallowest decompression stop and get out of the water really fast. And then Dr. Parsley and I wound up writing a paper on this decompression algorithm that we basically stumbled upon in our haste to figure out how we could get back to the surface more safely.
So these gases that dissolve into your tissue, if you just come back up, those expand.
Yep.
This can cause problems.
They can. Yeah.
So gas itself isn't really, it's not like it's poison. Yeah, just explain why does it matter that gas is going to expand as you come back up?
Right. So as you well know, maybe the listeners don't, if you look on the right side of the periodic table, all of those breathable gases that we can use, those are all inert, right? In other words, they don't interact with the human body. They basically have zero interaction. They can get absorbed into the tissues and off-gassed in and out of the tissues. Doesn't matter what you're breathing, your body's going to kind of want to equal out. But when you go down deep, you can absorb a lot of these. And if you come up too fast, these things can come out of solution, and then all bad things happen in the body, including systemic inflammatory response, activation of the complement system, and basically just an overboard reaction of your immune system to fight this foreign body, which is a bubble.
Right.
And that's supposedly the basis of decompression sickness, although we're really not sure.
And then the bubble can also block the blood flow in your arteries. If
in the worst cases, it absolutely could.
Big enough, swells fast enough, you can't interfere with the blood flow. You can have a stroke, a heart attack, essentially, right?
Yep. And it can manifest itself in many different ways, right? Like a little pain here, peripheral neuropathy, right? So,
yeah. What was the other name for the bends?
decompression sickness, the bends.
Some kind of dancing thing, or isn't there some sort of name about the Cassons disease?
Oh, Cassons disease, yeah.
And yeah. So, quick history for the audience. Explain the Cassons disease.
Yeah. So what happened was, my relatives, the Sandhogs, the Italians of New York, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, were building the Brooklyn Bridge. And as they're building the Brooklyn Bridge, they insert a box into the water, a huge box into the water, and they fill it with air, and they push it down all the way to the ocean floor, whatever, in this case, the bottom of the river. So as they're in the bottom of the river, our people, the Italians, will go down there and dig out until you settle that box into what we call bedrock. But you have to get rid of all the sand first, because the sand sits on the top of the ocean floor, and you got to get to bedrock. And then you fill that box with cement in the end, and you build the bridge abutment. You build this entire structure on which a suspension bridge is built. Well, on one side, you had no problem. The box went down, hit bedrock pretty quick. They got rid of all the sand and everything was great. On the other side, they had to dig really deep to get to bedrock. When they got to bedrock, it was an exceptionally deep dive, and we're talking about increasing that pressure and almost doubling the other side's pressure. When they did that, the guides would come out of the water and out of their pressure box, if you will, and bend over in half. Hence the ideology of the term, the bends. Yeah. Interestingly enough, Washington Roebling was the chief engineer on the Brooklyn Bridge, and he's sitting here watching all these sandhogs bend over and going, oh, you guys are just malingerers. So he goes down, watches for an entire shift. Now, these are like 8-hour shifts of just working your butt off. So they work their butt off, they come back up to the surface, and then Washington Roebling bends over at the waist and gets decompression sickness and has to finish out building the Brooklyn Bridge from a hotel room overlooking it. So he's got the bends, and we didn't know how to treat it in the late 1800s. By the early 1900s, we knew to recompress somebody and decompress them slowly.
Do you have any idea how deep that was?
Wow. I do not know the
pressure.
exacts.
No. Yeah, I don't know that either. Okay, so what you're describing with the mixed gas and finding new species in fish, that we'd call that technical diving, right? So you have a how many years of technical diving experience?
Oh boy! So I used to be the vice president of the International Association of Nitrox and Technical Divers, and I started that in the mid '90s. So I want to say I probably got 30 years of doing that. Actually, it was before that, so probably 35 years of doing that kind of diving.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know, that's rare. That's a long time to do such a thing, right? I mean, I guess it's not rare for people to do it, but it's rare that people do that, right? That people, that people do technical diving and then make a kind of a career out of it. Pretty hazardous to the health.
There's not a lot of us old guys out there, if you will.
Right, right. Then I met you at Deep Submergence Unit. Mm-hmm. No kidding, folks. That's the name of it. The Deep Submergence Unit. And what were you diving there? Like I know you were leading the divers, but what were the divers there diving?
So there we were diving the hard hats, that dope on a rope sort of a thing. We were diving scuba, but then we were developing the protocols to dive the 1 atmosphere suit, that big blue Michelin man suit. And there are 35 pilots in the world, and my number's 21.
Right. And how deep can those go?
2,000 feet.
2,000 feet. Which is really, really deep.
Really, really deep.
Yeah. And the purpose of that, why can't that go to 2,000 feet and you'll die if you go to 500 feet?
Yeah, so this is basically you inside a 1 atmosphere submarine, if you will, and having the ability to manipulate your arms, your legs, and fly around. Its primary purpose was what we called intervention. There were 2 sides at submarine, at the Deep Submergence Unit. One was the intervention, and the other was the rescue. So regardless, if the submarine goes down off the coast of wherever, and they happen to be in rescuable waters, and they're tilted like this, and they have a cargo net placed over the top of their escape hatch. They can't open the escape hatch. The intervention team would get in the suit, go down, clear the hatch, clear the way, make sure the hookup's done, get the wires right, whatever needs. Give them something like a pod, which they could use then to breathe more or have more food or have more water down in the submarine.
And because that suit can't be crushed.
Yeah.
Is it made out of titanium? What's it made out of?
No, it's made out of aluminum, made of poured aircraft aluminum.
Okay. And so it can't be crushed. So you can go down to 2,000 feet. The pressure won't crush it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to inflate it with pressure to keep it from being crushed. You can be at 1 atmosphere, even though at 2,000 feet, you're
810 PSI.
Okay. Yeah. So you're... so how many atmospheres are you at 2,000 feet? 33 feet per atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
So
A lot.
yeah. So you're like 80 atmospheres down or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and just a quick aside, what is an atmosphere pressure? Like, explain that to people, because we're going to get into hyperbaric. So
That's
do that now.
Good thought.
Okay.
So if you take a square inch and you weigh all the molecules from here to the top of the stratosphere, and you hold them in your hand, they weigh 14.7 pounds per square inch.
Yeah.
That is the air pressure that we're at right now, and that is also considered 1 atmosphere. So as above, so below, but every 33 feet, if you weigh the water column that is 1 inch thick, that also weighs 14.7 pounds. So basically that is another atmosphere. And every more 33 feet you go down, 33, 66, 99, 132, you're multiplying the number of atmospheres. So you're squishing the gas down, and the gas, it's in a reciprocal relationship. So if you go to 2 atmospheres, the gas is twice as dense and half as much volume.
Right.
You go to 3 atmospheres, it's 3 times as dense and 1/3 the volume, right? And 4 and 5, and so you could imagine this thing gets to be a lot of pressure.
Right.
Like I said, 2,000 feet is 810 pounds per square inch. That's a crazy amount of pressure.
Yeah, so right now, every square inch of my body has 14.5 pounds of pressure pushing on me.
Yep.
You don't feel that.
You don't feel it.
And this is why astronauts, one of the reasons astronauts have their problems, because they get out there, they have nothing pushing on them. And their muscles, they start losing their muscles and their strength and their bone density and all the stuff that they need when they get back here. And so you get down, if you could dive down without that suit, you would have to be able to move 800 pounds of pressure per square inch to be able to move down there.
Yeah.
And be able to breathe past that. So it'd be like, doing jujitsu with an elephant.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's like breathing split pea soup.
Yeah.
Now the deepest man dive outside a pressurized container is something like 2,200 feet deep. Now you can go that deep. Human tolerance, I want to say it's 2265. I think the French did a test, but you're so lethargic. The work of breathing resistance, like you say, it's breathing split pea soup. It's so dense. You're like, you can't move because it's too hard to work.
And it'd probably take 42 forevers to get back to the surface after that.
Yeah, 42 forevers.
Yeah, okay. Because you'd have to decompress all the way up from there, right? That would be insane. Okay, so Deep Submerged Unit, that's where you and I met, did our best to be upstanding citizens and stay out of trouble, and we didn't do a very good job of it.
Failed miserably.
But we survived, persevered in life. You get out of the Navy, eventually you get your PhD in biomedical engineering.
Yep.
You then open a hyperbaric, where I did my first sort of N of 1 research on hyperbarics on myself.
Yep.
And what are you doing now?
So now, right this second, I'm the Assistant Vice President of Veterans Clinical Research at the University of South Florida. So we're doing the largest clinical trial in hyperbaric medicine ever done. We have an N of 420, which is a pretty significant N, especially in hyperbaric medicine. Because, so who funds all of these studies that are happening in the world on all of these interventions? Well, they're drugs. So drug companies are funding them. Well, what's the drug company for oxygen? Because the frickin' trees are making it. So there is no drug company. So nobody's funding these studies. In this case, the state of Florida legislature said, yeah, we're going to fund this type of a study. And they let us do it at the University of South Florida. So they picked me and I said, thank you.
And that's specifically for veterans.
It is a veterans-only study.
For traumatic brain injury.
Mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. And we're taking blood, urine, saliva, electrocardiogram.
All mixed together?
All those together from the same place, from the same orifice. Yike. No, but, we're just doing as much science as we possibly can, casting a very wide net and kind of trying to figure out whether this works or not.
And the hypothesis is that it does work. The hypothesis is that it doesn't work.
I mean, the known mechanisms of action of hyperbaric medicine are many, but those that apply, in my opinion, to traumatic brain injury, mild to moderate traumatic brain injury, are the increase in brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which we know for sure Hyperbarics does, specifically hyperbaric HIF-1 alpha does that. And then also hyperoxygenation helps, stem cell production helps, so there's a lot of things, neurogenesis, a lot of things that we think should probably help. It makes scientific sense, but we haven't done large enough studies. The N's in hyperbaric medicine are usually, you said an N of 1, maybe they're like 15, 20 is what we see commonly in experiments. So the scientists go, well, that's not real science because it's not drug company model science.
Right.
Right.
And you have an interesting N of 1 for your own TBI.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric. Talk about that. Actually, to be quite frank, I don't think I've ever heard the full story from you.
Seriously?
I've been there when you've lectured on it. So I've heard your lecture version of it.
Wow.
But you and I have never actually talked about that event. Other than you called me, I think maybe from the hospital or like right after, and you kind of gave me the I'm still delirious 5-minute summary of it. But as far as the treatment you went through, what you did and all of that, we exchanged a few texts about peptides here and there, but I don't know the full story. So let's.
It's unfortunately
you're a great storyteller. So go into storyteller mode and let's hear about first the destruction of a beautiful truck.
So I'm driving
very cool truck.
My 1947 Chevy pickup truck. And it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so there's obviously no alcohol involved. I'm just coming back from the gym, and, I'm just going back to my clinic. Light turns green. I press the gas. Somebody blew the other light, T-boned me. Now, as you remember, that 47 had shaved door handles.
Yeah.
So there was no way to open the doors from the outside, and I am unconscious in the seat. So thankfully, some paramedic figured out how to rip the door off the hinges, which was amazing, and dragged me out. And thankfully, because, there's a 47 Chevy with a 350, that the fuel pump kept going and going and going, and the engine was still clicked on. There's nothing, it could have been a very bad explosion. It pulled me out, literally wake up in the back of the ambulance. Who are you? Where am I? What the hell's going on? No, you're fine. You're on your way to St. Joe's Hospital. I'm like, what happened? Finally get to St. Joe's Hospital. I'm delirious. I do not remember calling you. I have no recollection of that fact, Senator. Yeah. But I was jacked up. Turns out I had an 8-millimeter hemorrhagic stroke, prefrontal cortex, left side. So this is where you start to do all this remembering and thinking, and executive function is all in this front side. And I'm just like, bleh. So I am jacked, and I mean jacked up. 2 days in the intensive care unit and 5 more days in the hospital on, bed watch, for crying out loud. Now, I wrote the book, or I'm in the process of writing the book, Why My Traumatic Brain Injury is the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. And I truly believe that as I've been handed this mantle, this task to go forward and try and do something with it. So that's why I'm on the traumatic brain injury thing. So I get out of the hospital and I'm like, I know how to fix it, right? I know how to fix it. I'm going to go do hyperbaric medicine. Great. So hyperbaric medicine helps. It reduces inflammation, all the things that we said that it's going to do. It does do. But one single treatment modality was not enough to take care of my very traumatic brain injury. It wasn't a chronic, it's been over to, it wasn't chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It was just a very traumatic incident, and I did not know how to fix it. So it turned out I did hyperbarics for a month, and it did not work at all. Well, not at all. It did not work to where I needed it to, so much so that my vision was off, my mind was off, I was unclear, I was fuzzy. And I have residual self-image because I look in the mirror and I go, who the hell is that old guy in the mirror, right? But I feel myself as a young man that can do great things, and now I can't. Now I am just broken. Now I am despondent. And I needed to feel all this in order to have empathy for the people that now have traumatic brain injury. So all my years of getting blown up in the military and doing very stupid things and being very lucky, I didn't get knocked out. I didn't get knocked unconscious, and I didn't have a severe traumatic brain injury like I had this time. So, oh man, thankfully, I kind of stumbled down that road. I got to the darkness. And I contemplated suicide, right? So I contemplated ending it all over this specific problem. But, I'm religious. I'm Catholic, if you will. And I had to do everything before I could take my own life. So that meant I had to face east, look at the sun, pray, hop up and down on one leg, do, energetic therapy, structural energetic therapy, physical therapy, red light therapy, beamer mat, all that crap together at the same time. So it's very unscientific,
right?
But then I got immensely better in a very short period of time.
Right.
And I developed this.
Now, were there psychedelics involved with that?
There were absolutely psychedelics involved in that.
Because that's a very powerful treatment. I just want the audience to know that, it is something that I do advocate for. As controversial as it is, I've seen phenomenal results with that. Probably the most powerful thing I've ever seen as far as dealing with traumatic brain injury. Hyperbarics would be the second most powerful thing. The peptides and hormones would be the third, and then
all these
the
other things
stuff I would call that's all necessary, but it's fifth
tertiary levels,
it's
way down deep in the weeds. Yeah. So the interesting part about that journey is I did the military version Ibogaine in Mexico, went through that entire process, and I felt like $1 million right away, and then it just puts your body and your mind in the right space to start to heal itself, right? I don't think there's an overt healing that goes on. I think it's a very, covert type of a thing. We just change the way you think. And it's hard for humans to change the way they think, right? Yeah. You get steeped into this one path. And the analogy is going on a ski slope. And you go on the ski slope and the ruts get cut in ice and you get the moguls. And before you know it, this is the only way you can get down smoothly. Yeah. And that's the way you get to the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah, I use the metaphor of the wagon, like the wagon going down the old West wagon. You go down the dirt road a million times, and then that's how you get home.
Yeah.
And then what makes you a grumpy old man isn't the years behind you. It's those wagon ruts, right? It's that's the right way, and everything else is the wrong way. You know it because you've done it a million times, and to think differently is to go wrong. Is to pull off of these ruts and go through all this hassle to go some other way. And that's what we call neuroplasticity, right? The ability to just go, I don't want to be on this rut. I don't want to go down this track. I'm gonna consider this other one,
right? Which
we're great at when we're young because the ruts aren't there, right? We haven't formed them yet, and so we're willing to think of things a million different ways. And then, of course, one of the problems with having a brain injury is that your brain's injured, and so you might need to think in a different way to be able to think clearly, just to be able to process information that you were able to process before. Maybe that pathway is not available anymore, and so now you got to get, from I don't know, Texas to LA via Omaha, Nebraska, or something, right? You got to take a different route, right?
There's been a rock slide on your rut, and now all of a sudden you can't get there from here. How the hell do you go?
Yeah. And so you recovered, I don't know, was that a year and a half kind of recovery period?
September 7th got in the accident. September 14th got out, started to plan the suicide in the October timeframe. And by the end of December, with all of the stuff that I was doing, I was feeling much better. Now, it took a little while to heal because there are some things like, I had strabismus surgery when I was young. And when I did that, I had some double vision, which corrected itself. Yeah. Okay, that's great. But then when I got the traumatic brain injury, my eyes went off like this again, and I couldn't really put the reading together. So that didn't heal. It's still not fully healed. I have to wear prism glasses. So
that's gotten better, though. It's gotten a lot better. I remember seeing you after that and going, wow, that's gotten bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you did your N of 1 healing. I know you went on to lecture several times about that.
Yeah.
And then you did the Dr. Deep Sea thing, man. So let's tell the audience, we got about 25 minutes left.
So go short.
Yeah. So, So tell a good story. That's what I'm telling you. You got time.
All right.
Let's hear not only what you did, but why that's significant, and why the feat itself is significant, and why it was significant and important to you.
So 4 real reasons that I did this. The first is I have a PhD in biomedical engineering, and I wanted to know what happens to a human when you leave them in an isolated, confined, extreme environment for a period of time. So we took, same as we're taking at the University of South Florida, blood, urine, saliva, electrocardiograms, electroencephalograms, pulmonary function tests regularly and often, psychosocial tests, crazy amounts of data collected on the scale of, if not more than, what we did in Sea Lab. So back in the late 60s, early 70s, we were doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, we needed to get back in the ocean, is my opinion. That was the first reason. Second reason is that I wanted to talk to kids about science, technology, engineering, and math. There's a constant push right now to get into soft things, soft sciences and art, and it's okay. All that stuff is great. However, the art is not going to get us to Mars, right? There's real science that has to happen. The art is not going to get us to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Real science, real engineering, that stuff needs to happen. And I wanted to let kids know that they could do it in a cool environment. It's not about beakers and microscopes and lab coats and boring, right? Like, that's just crap boring. It can be fun. Third reason, I wanted to talk to everybody about preserving, protecting, and rejuvenating the marine environment. Because, look, this is, arguably speaking, you get 70 to 75% of the oxygen produced on this planet produced in the ocean. And we are shitting all over the ocean, right? We need to take better care of it, I think. And then the fourth reason was because hyper means more than and baric means pressure, I was able to illustrate to the world the known mechanisms of action of hyperbaric medicine. Right. So I could show them, here I am in pressure in this environment, similar to being in a hyperbaric chamber for all that time, and here's the good things that happened, right? So that's the real reasoning.
Okay, but you didn't tell anybody what you did.
Oh, I stayed in an underwater habitat, a lab, if you will, for 100 total straight days. In other words, I did the world's longest dive, which was 100 days, exactly to the minute. There was even a little daylight savings time in there that we forwarded the clocks. So I went in the water at 9:30. I came out of the water at 10:30, right? It's like we didn't mess around. It was exactly 100 days underwater, which, it just moved the needle and tried to get people to understand. And the world was looking for something good at the time, right? So every major news place picked it up. It was a good news story that was totally altruistic. There was nothing like, and we paid for it ourselves, Yeah. So me and the Marine Resources Developmental Foundation took money out of pocket and paid for this research ourselves. And it was just fun and an interesting story.
Yeah. It's a very small space. You just took me to see it recently.
Yep.
You taught my beautiful wife how to scuba dive. And we went inside of it. It was not much bigger than the space we're sitting in right now.
Oh, no, this is colossally bigger than the space.
The ceiling's definitely a lot higher.
Ceiling's a lot higher.
Yeah.
And the air is even better.
It was musky and dank, and you kind of put yourself in prison for 100 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what came out of that when you started looking at the labs, the blood, saliva, urine, echocardiograms, EEGs, like what'd y'all find?
the known mechanisms of action of hyperbaric medicine, right? So I had a decrease in every single inflammatory marker in my body, from HSCRP to things like interleukin 6, right? All of these things, my inflammation was stereotypically very far down, right? Cortisol had a sharp decrease. Why? No real idea. I had more stress while I was underwater because I was working way more underwater than I generally do on the surface. And then when, cortisol drops, you have a spike in testosterone. So I had a huge spike in testosterone, like 7 times the free, which was colossal. I slept. Usually I sleep between 30 and 33% in deep and REM, and that seems to be the known number, I think. I defer to you on that, to be honest. But underwater, I slept between 60 and 66% in deep and REM, and I was just like shocked. I don't know if it's the increase in metabolism, and everybody that came down and visited and spent an overnight reported with their Apple Watch or with their iWatch or with their Oura Ring or whatever, the same or similar type increases in sleep pattern, which I thought.
It would make sense for me, we just lower cortisol, right? Cortisol is wake promoting. The lowest cortisol you have in any 24-hour period is while you're asleep. You're starting with low cortisol. My guess is it probably has a lot to do with light, because that was a very low light environment, which you're talking about, not a lot of sun exposure. And then obviously there's some pressure mechanisms that we don't quite understand yet. But I would say, the light's definitely a component of it. Now you have this low cortisol and you're sleeping and you're tired because I know you haven't mentioned it yet, but as I recall, your metabolic rate went up considerably as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're burning a lot more energy with a lot less of the weight promoting hormone that usually determines how fast your metabolism is going, cortisol, right? So you have other mechanisms racing your metabolic rate. Mitochondria biogenesis is my guess, right?
Yeah.
So now all your cells are healthier. Mm-hmm. If I recall, there was something akin to what people like to call anti-aging going on there as well.
Yeah. I had I want to say it was a 13% increase in telomere length.
Yeah.
I also had I had a 5% increase in coherence, how much information you're pushing back and forth between the nodes, and like a 9% decrease in phase lag or something like that. It was actually pretty terrific. There's a lot of these known mechanisms of action that help. Hyperbarics helps with, and I got the advent of all of them.
And the phase lag is the amount of time it takes to communicate between different regions.
Yeah, how fast the signal goes, if you will. So I had a decrease in that, which is good. So I sped it up, basically.
Faster brain. What else did you say you had? In increase in coherence. So the brain was talking to the region of the brain who were talking to themselves, talking to each other more efficiently and faster.
Yeah, exactly. More efficiently and faster, if you will.
And any other biomarkers down there. So, go. You want to explain telomere length in case people don't understand?
Yeah, sure. So on the end of the chromosome, you have these things that allow you to replicate, do that mRNA, that DNA to mRNA transcription, right? So you copy your cell. How do you do that? Well, you use one of these telomeres. It's like the gatekeeper, the toll, right? So you use a little bit, it's gone. You use a little bit more, it's gone. And when that's totally gone, that's cellular senescence. So this can no longer be reproduced if you don't have any telomeres. So people are using this as an age marker. It's not a true age marker. However, when you look at some of this stuff, I did some of the Truicity testing as well. And for instance, I went in the water and my epigenetic age was something like 44, and I'm 55 at the time. And I came out of the water and my epigenetic age was reduced to 34.
Based on telomere lengths or methylation?
Telomere length, methylation panel, a combination of things. Mm-hmm. That's that woo-woo sort of anti-aging thing.
And while you were down there, as I recall, you were zooming into classrooms and so forth. And
we talked to 5,500 and something students in biomedical, anywhere from biomedical engineering, college courses, master's students, all the way down to the, second grade level, and talked to them about science, technology, engineering, and math. 3 hours a day. I'd lecture that class. And then, I'd work and I'd do probably 2 to 3 outreaches per day for an hour at a pop. And then I did between 8 and 9 hours of science a day. Like if you've never hooked up an EEG lead on yourself, the electroencephalogram on your head, you've never
Especially with all that hair.
Yeah, I had to grease up my hair.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I had 100 days of bad hair days. It was just horrible. Right?
Okay. And then, so you came out of that, and then that's when you went over to Florida. Florida State or University?
University of South Florida.
University of South Florida.
They offered me a job that I couldn't refuse. They wanted me to get into what I was doing and help and promote and do kinds of good things. And look, if we can bring the veterans community to a possible solution for traumatic brain injury, again, I said possible because it's not proven yet. But if we can bring these veterans in, I'd love to recruit my friends, my brothers in arms, people that have gotten hurt in the military that need to be and should be taken care of, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit into that. So, hyperbarics, you've explained the etiology of that word and the actual denotation of it. Talk a little bit about how a hyperbaric chamber is used clinically. Like what's it used for? Kind of for people who don't know, like what does it look like? What's the experience like? And what would you likely be, in one for other than doing research for you?
Sure. So it's been around since 1664, and the uses are varied and plenty. Right now, there are 15 approved indications, osteomyelitis, gaseous gangrene, carbon monoxide poisoning, crush injury compartment syndrome, things like that. So if you're having compromised or poorly healing wounds and you're diabetic, coincidentally, it works very well on those, you can get in the hyperbaric chamber and you can get faster healing. So basically what they're doing is they're applying mechanisms of action of hyperbaric medicine, and you're getting the better healing from it. You're getting the increase in stem cells. You're getting the decrease in toxicity, the toxin inhibition, if you will. So all of those approved things have led to many, many, many more off-label things. Right now, traumatic brain injury is an off-label indication, but we know that some of the mechanisms of action, we can point at them and they should help, we hope, right? Look, science wins over BS. Like I said, it's just trying to help your body to heal itself. It doesn't really heal anything. It just puts your body in the right space from a vitalistic upgrade, helping mitochondrial function, helping, cellular function at every level. Increasing blood flow, all those are great things. Now, can you get too much? Of course you can. What does it feel like? When you get in a hyperbaric chamber, what we basically do is, and I'm going to
What does the hyperbaric chamber look like? What are you getting into? Is it like sitting in here?
Right. It could be a place like this, but it's generally not. They're usually cold and dank, and, they're acrylic tubes that you slide into that's very sterile, and you have to take off all your clothes and put on these special gowns, and they surround you with 100% oxygen. Okay, that's one way of doing it. And this topic hasn't been innovated at all ever. So I've been pushing hyperbaric chamber manufacturers to innovate. I'll give you a perfect, for instance, for the last 50 years, we've basically had the same models of hyperbaric chambers, those acrylic tubes that sit in hospitals, and there has been no incentive to make them more innovative until now. Right. So now we have companies that are going, ooh, there's some good wellness that's going on. What can we do? So people are jumping on board, but they're not making the hyperbaric chambers correctly or safely. So it's running us into a problem where they're shortcutting it. And that's just not the way to go at it. But like, for instance, some of these hyperbaric chambers do not even have a computer on them to control them. They're still manually controlled. Like back when you and I were in the Navy a million years ago, that's how we started, was with manual control. Come on, 50, 60, 70, 80 years of hyperbarics, you should be on a computer by now.
Right. And so what does it feel like?
So what it feels like is you increase the pressure. If I double the number of molecules in a space, I increase the pressure, I condense the breathing media, and I make it twice as condensed. And that oxygen that you're breathing is now able to go into your body faster, further, easier, and subvert the transport mechanism that we have, which in this case is hemoglobin, right? So you can pressurize the oxygen into the plasma and saturate the body so thoroughly that you can support cellular respiration without the need for hemoglobin, which is really the crux of hyperbarics. That's basically the easiest way to describe hyperbarics.
Yeah, that's my go-to about it. Just, the dissolving the oxygen into the plasma, allowing it to exit in places other than capillary beds and like diffuse into tissues, get oxygen to a place where you don't even have blood supply, or you have very poor blood supply at least. And that's a fascinating mechanism. And then I think what you're in reference to, was it 3 atmospheres they put pigs down into and took out the red blood cells.
Life without blood is that study. We're oversimplifying it here, but yeah, life without blood. They exsanguinated a whole bunch of pigs in the 50s, 55, 56, something like that. That paper was done.
Yeah, I had to watch those videos as part of my hyperbaric residency.
Really?
Yeah.
The pig videos. Excellent.
Yeah. And it's pretty macabre when they start coming back to the surface. Yeah. With no blood in them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Not
ashen gray.
Yeah.
Not looking good.
Yeah. Getting foamy and expanding. Yeah. Okay, so one thing, in case the audience isn't clear, oxygen is classified as a drug by the FDA because of government overreach and people who shouldn't have say wanting to have say over everything. But it is legal to use things off label, right? As a physician, there's all sorts of drugs that are prescribed for that are approved for any various cause that I can prescribe for anything I want to, right?
Right.
I can give you antibiotics for a headache if I want to.
Right.
It's not illegal. Makes me a bad, it makes me a bad doctor. Like, it makes me an idiot, but it's not illegal, right? And so that's kind of the situation we're running into with, this sort of this wild west of hyperbaric activity right now, where it's, hey, I'm a doctor. I'm going to tell this guy he can go there, or even worse, like, hey, I'm the physician supervisor of this hyperbaric facility, and can you guys do whatever the hell you want to, right? Don't get me in any trouble. And that's kind of playing out. There's been some bad outcomes recently, and I know you know a lot about those.
Oh boy.
So just briefly, explain some of the risk.
Yeah.
And then, how do we mitigate those risks? Like, is everybody just stupid this is happening to, or like, is that risk there? Is that risk there all the time? And there's nothing we can do about it? Or like how risky is this? Is this a really safe procedure? Or is this something that, man, you really gotta weigh the pros and cons of this, right?
So in the interest of fully understanding, I did a 101-year study, a metadata analysis of every single accident that has ever occurred. I think the grand total was, and don't quote me on the number, but I think it's 137 lives lost in the past 100 years due directly and attributable to the hyperbaric technician or the doctor messing up.
Right.
And that's exactly it. It is that. And up till 1985, there were a whole bunch of incidents that happened before that were like, oh, we just didn't know that. After 85, we've gone, like static electricity and static dissipation. You go, you probably should have thought of that before 1985. But as of 85, we know everything that has happened. And if you do anything wrong, according to the basic Bible, right? Like, here's the bad things that you can't do. You put a patient in the chamber in 100% oxygen, you must ground them.
Yeah. Some
clinic decided that, grounding, we don't believe in grounding. And I'm like, I don't believe in the tooth fairy. I may not believe in Santa Claus, but I believe in physics, right? Like, you have to ground.
I believe in gravity.
I believe in gravity. Oh, it's just a theory.
It's not going to help. It's not going to help. Your beliefs are irrelevant here. Okay.
So people didn't ground people, and that led to, and the person was allowed to wear a pair of pajamas in there that were not 100% cotton in a 100% oxygen environment, rubbed their knee together while they were adjusting, and that created enough static electricity to make a spark, and that spark increased the temperature, increased the pressure, and bad things happened. And that poor person.
So why does that happen? Why is it so flammable in there?
So oxygen, believe it or not, is colorless, odorless, and non-flammable. If you read any oxygen bottle, it says it's non-flammable on it. And it isn't, but it is an accelerant. So it will accelerate or lower the flash point of anything. And no matter what material is in there, it will burn. No matter what it is. Even if it's metal, it will burn. And guess what? You and I are both material.
Right.
So we will burn.
Right.
It's kind of morbid, but it's horrible.
Yeah. So if if you have responsible practitioners, responsible owners of these clinics, where would you rate the safety? I mean, is it alongside of skydiving? Is it alongside of riding a bicycle, going to the grocery store?
No. Even with the
Russian
idiots,
roulette?
even with the idiots, we're talking about 137, 138 total deaths in 100 plus years of hyperbarics.
Right.
That's a really freaking statistically insignificant death rate.
How do I know that I'm in the wrong place? How do I know I'm going into a risky place?
I do it like this. When you walk into anywhere, ask them for their red binder. And if they are in hyperbarics and they don't know what a red binder is, leave.
Walk away.
Run away. Just like, don't go there, right? And you're like, if they let you take electronics in, run away, right? It's not the electronics, truly. It's the battery, right? The battery has been a major cause. The battery in an Apple Watch has been a cause of a major hyperbaric fire. The small, teeny, tiny battery in an Apple Watch. It's insane, right?
But Lake Havasu is a red light or something.
So I believe that there was red lights in there, and there was also a walkie-talkie in there. So, and those
could have been, either one of those could have been the source. Then,
well, either one of those, both of those did in fact have a primary source of ignition. So you see them, you see the footage, and you can go, that was the source of ignition, and that was the source of ignition, according to the fire department. Not me; I'm not an expert at it,
Right.
But look, it's the battery. The batteries are made in basically lithium-ion batteries are made basically in 2 places in the United States and a couple of places outside. And if they are increased in pressure and you squish it down, the anode connects to that cathode and heat is generated. And we all like our watches and batteries and phones to last all day. There's a lot of energy density, so that's a lot of heat.
I want to, one more question before I get to this. Soft chambers versus a hard chamber. People ask me this all the time. I have a very strong opinion about it. Mm-hmm. You tell me the Dr. Deep Sea version. Yeah. Like what is a soft chamber actually good for?
So science wins over bullshit every time, right? So I had this question, so I set a PhD student up on a path to go ahead and test the difference between soft or mild hyperbarics. And really what we're getting at is the pressure. So we're talking about low pressure hyperbarics or high pressure hyperbarics. In order to make certain mechanisms of action work, you have to have lower or higher. For instance, if you want toxin inhibition, you need, as you know, gaseous gangrene, you need high partial pressures of oxygen, up to 3.0. But if you want to make the anti-inflammatory stuff work better, 1.4, 1.5 is what the science says, right? Mm-hmm. So holy mackerel, the anti-inflammatory markers are better in the 1.4 range than they are in the 2.0 or 3.0 range. That's interesting, right? So some of that, cellular metabolism stuff, way better in the low ranges than they are in the high ranges. So now the safety of zipping yourself up into a Ziploc bag, that is you. I don't neither confirm nor deny. As long as the thing is built correctly, I think that a low pressure system is okay. And remember, it's perfectly okay to do low pressure hyperbarics in a hard shell chamber, right? Because they all go to 3. If they go to 3.0, they go to 3.0. But if it goes to 3.0, it goes to 1.2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Tell me this, if somebody's listening and they think, hey, I want to go try hyperbaric chambers for whatever reason. I want to see the anti-inflammatory effects. I want to increase my mitochondrial activity, kind of whatever. I want it for generalized health. I've got some wound issues. How do they go about finding a place? Like
the International Hyperbaric Association has a list of their approved places, and those approved places only basically the minimum criteria for going into any of this is 510K clearance. As you know, with any medical device, has to be 510K cleared. You don't want to get in a chamber that's not 510K cleared at a minimum. Now, a much higher standard to that is the ASME PVHO standard. So, you know, the 510K clearance is kind of sort of the minimum. Did you kind of sort of build it with safe industrial practices or current best practices and procedures? Yeah. Okay, we'll give you 510K. But did you build it to the hyperbaric standard? Yes, now you can get ASME PVHO, right? So you should be asking about those two clearances.
You said that really fast, ASME PVHO.
Yeah, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, pressure vessels for human occupancy.
Right on. Right. Tattoo that on your forehead.
Yeah, that and a
You'll
dog.
get all the chicks. Okay. All right. So go to IHA.org.
The International Hyperbaric Association. Honestly, I don't know the site name, but you can Google the International Hyperbaric Association. You're looking for places that carry the International Board of Undersea Medicine training, right? So ask them for their training credentials. You have to be a hyperbaric chamber operator to operate a hyperbaric chamber. It's required by the National Fire Protection Association. And then you have to be safety director trained. So ask them for their certificates. Honestly, most reputable places have them hanging on the wall. And they go, oh, you have a certificate. Okay. That doesn't mean much, but at least they have the certificate and they know when they were trained and knew at one time the proper things to do.
Right. Final question. What, if anybody, for whatever reasons, finds what you're saying interesting, how would they go to learn about more of what Joe Detury talks about, what you're doing research-wise, what where you're going, what you're up to, or any ask you questions or things like that?
Yeah, you can definitely hook me up. Find me on Dr. Deep Sea is the handle, DRDEEPSEA. That's the Instagram and TikTok and whatever else and all that junk. But then, if you go to www.drdeepsea.com, you'll find what we're doing and where we're going, the books that we're writing, that kind of stuff.
All right. I think that's going to be a wrap. Appreciate you coming on, Joey, my brother.
Appreciate it.
That will do it for the Doc Parsley podcast today. I hope you found it informative, and we will see you next time.